my name is Ben. I sing in a band called Wrong Hands. You could classify us in metal, hardcore, and punk genres. We're based in Montreal. I sing. Well, since the style of music is a bit more aggressive, there's a lot more screaming involved in singing. Yeah, but I also write some of the music. The writing is pretty much a joint composition between all the members. Well, they had asked me to join. At that point in time, I was going through some, some like heavy experiences, a lot of negative feelings, a lot of anger, a lot of confusion. Themes that I feel I've been prevailing throughout my whole life. But at that point, it kind of really hit like a really hard point. So that band really helped me. Whenever they helped me to kind of vent those some of those emotions that were building up quite some time. That was the main motivation or focal point for the band. Just trying to get all that those thoughts, those feelings out into a way that I feel is a positive expression of it. We started that band 2-3 years ago. I was 24, I think, maybe 25. Started playing music a lot earlier. I mean, I fiddled around with the guitar a bit when I was 15. Started singing when I was 17. But for Wrong Hands in itself, we started in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. It definitely can be. As a white male, I don't really feel that there's much of a culture for me to bring out. Even though I am French Canadian, there's not really much there for me that I identify with. If there is a cultural aspect that I feel that I prefer to express, would be, I guess, the negative aspects of a lot of problems that we have. A lot of the oppression that goes on, like classism, sexism, racism, all that, and how systematic it is, how so deeply ingrained it is into our society. I mean, through all levels of government and through social interactions, what the media pushes through. That is part of our culture, so I guess that would be the only thing I would really feel I could say is something that comes out through my music, through a cultural experience. You could also say too, I guess, that maybe other people's cultures that I feel don't really get as much of a chance in this society, that through reasons of racism, sexism, those are cultures that I feel that when their rights are trampled upon, I want to stand up for it. So that's, I guess, another small part in which culture gets expressed, but it's not my culture per se. And when it's not my culture, I don't necessarily want to speak for it, because it's not necessarily where I come from. I'd rather speak for the individual who gets their rights trampled upon, but it does kind of touch on it. Like a lot of genres and subgenres has like a very strong identification with the music. I mean, sometimes it is superficial, but other times there's a lot of ideals that are communicated, an attitude that's there commonly in the scene. A lot of it is negative, but there are some positive aspects I find. Ideals that I've found through hardcore have been things like veganism, even feminism to a certain extent, straight edge too, which is the abstinence of drugs and alcohol. And so these are things that are there in hardcore, and by participating in hardcore, by being in a band, I sort of explore those ideas more in depth, because I'm in a position to say something and for other people to hear it, and it kind of helps me put a lot of those ideals into perspective, to examine them, examine also my thoughts and my own feelings, the way that I put them out, and then also the ideas and feelings as a whole, how I feel about them as from my own perspective, and how I think other people might perceive it. I feel that sometimes that helps me challenge what I think and re-examine what it is that I feel like I'm doing or saying. Obviously, that is a part of who I am. It definitely plays a part in shaping your identity. So I guess by participating and by doing, it forces me to think and re-examine and sometimes change who you are, a part of who you are, or how you go about things. Conserve my soul. there's a lot of people who have different, I feel, personal definitions of straight edge. But basically, the history of it is, in the beginning of the 80s, there's this band called Minor Threat. They had a song called Straight Edge, and the lyrics were basically about not participating in the drug and alcohol abuse that still is so common in the punk scene. They felt like it wasn't productive. There was nothing, and there was nothing of interest there for them. I mean, punk was about self-destruction and destruction of like everything around you, just like about decay and everything like that. So it's understandable that you'd want to destroy yourself through drugs and alcohol. I mean, not necessarily in a physical way, but like sometimes just like in like a mental release kind of a way. But some people didn't want that, and so then straight edge kind of took on this different form of kind of a movement. And now the way that I could best describe it is that straight edge is a commitment against drugs and alcohol, against consuming drugs and alcohol. And different people take it to different levels. For me, it's a very personal thing. I take it down to the basics. I don't want to drink alcohol. I don't want to consume any narcotics. Some people include sex. Some people will have different ways of expressing it. There's unfortunately a lot of violence involved in it too. A lot of right-wing kind of leaning ideologies that I feel are kind of harmful. It kind of took off into its own life, and since it happened as a word of a mouth thing through subcultures, there was never a Bible or a large like any set of codes. It was just a song that a band wrote that kind of took off as a movement. Pluralism is really whenever you have multiple cultures or identities, be it religion, race, sex, gender identity. And I also feel that pluralism as a context within society, especially today, is something that means a positive inclusion, not just participation, not just like integration, but like a complete like inclusion and interaction with all these different ideas and cultures and religions. Really respect the human being behind those ideas, or in front of those ideas, depending on how you want to look at it. Definitely have seen it applied to music. Unfortunately, I feel that a lot of it, I mean, especially since a lot of the more like the music genres that I identify with and that I participate with, metal, punk, hardcore, whatever, they're pretty much dominated by white men. I mean, metal I feel is a bit more friendly. It's a bit more laid back. It's a bit of a dark spot that I find in hardcore. I feel that when you go to a metal show and you see someone there who's a visible minority, I feel that people will be more inclusive. Like they won't really think about it. I mean, obviously there's like people who are racist or whatever who are into metal, but I mean, as a whole, from what I've experienced, I feel that it's very inclusive, and punk too. So there are places where pluralism, I feel, is more present and accepted. In some of the smaller scenes, some of the more underground scenes, there are venues that have tried to create safe spaces for people, but they're often labeled as just too PC, too politically correct, people who worry about superficial things that don't really matter, not really realizing that even just conversation can help participate and reinforce in negative and harmful environments. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in society as a whole, and I kind of wish that some subcultures and cultures that would identify themselves as kind of renegades against the system, things that they see as corrupt, to kind of really take a step further and include that more in their practices and what they say, as opposed to just saying, like, screw the police and then just littering on rich people's lawns and thinking that that's like a significant difference. I guess so, in the same way that every human being have a different set of values. Sometimes you find people that you have a lot in common with, sometimes you have people you have less in common with, sometimes you find people that you feel you have nothing in common with at all. I mean, I suppose there's always one thing you can find in common with a person, whether it's an ideal or just something as simple as like what kind of condiment you prefer on your food. There's definitely some bands that carry some ideals more strongly than others, some bands that reflect their ideals more strongly than others. I feel that depending on the ideal, this can either be a positive thing or a negative thing, in the sense that some bands that are straight edge or vegan can be exclusive, as in, if you do not listen to the particular set of ideals, or if you don't follow the particular set of ideals that we do, you're not really understanding us, or like we're against you in principle. Some people unfortunately take it to a physical level, like I mentioned before. Some people can kind of get violent about some of their ideals. So I don't really believe in that. It depends, but again, some bands do include other ideals into their music, their message, and they feel that inclusion is more important to try and reach out to the human being. Some of those bands, I feel, can help make more of a positive impact, but I also think are kind of less present in the music scene, because they tend to go against the typical what's popular. People will like what they like, but I feel that it's very common amongst bands that are popular to kind of have a certain narrow mindset, or not really diversify, both in the sense of what they talk about and in the sense of pluralism. I mean, we're definitely hugely influenced by some of the bands musically. But I mean, that's unavoidable. You can't really create new music if you've heard music. I guess we get to a lot of philosophical debates about that. But from a message point of view, I never really felt that my lyrics were anything amazing or stand out or really different. But there are some things that I feel are really present in hardcore that I want to avoid. I feel there's a lot of songs about the scene in itself, and not so much about issues. Not so much anymore, anyway. I feel like in the first 2 decades of hardcore, since it started in the 80s, there was a bit more to say. Not that I think there's anything wrong with bands that want to sing about how they feel. If they write a song about how angry they feel, how sad they feel, songs about depression. I've written songs about those topics. Those are things that I can understand when you want to vent something. So in a small way, I feel like I differ from something that I view as a very popular theme. Like when there's music about what goes on in the music scene, I feel it's kind of gets very cyclical sometimes, very repetitive. I prefer to sing about either what I feel, what I'm thinking, or issues of social justice. I don't really feel that that we have like a strong standout kind of vibe, either musically or lyrically, but I definitely don't necessarily feel that we go with what's cool or popular or what's the mainstream. Not because we try to be cool by not being cool, but just by doing what we want to do. I feel that we sort of follow a path that we want to. That's not necessarily it's a path that's our own path, but something that's not as definitely not what's like the main what I view as the mainstream. I just think that pluralism is something that's very important, something that a lot of people should try to consider, and not just and to really try to understand other points of views, no matter how much you might disagree with them. I mean, it's if you're scared to look into other views because you don't want to challenge the way you think, then it's maybe it's time for you to actually do something. Because if you're scared about something shattering what you believe in, you should. It's probably because what you believe in isn't maybe necessarily that's solid all the way through as an ideology. I think there's a lot of challenges that we should adopt. I mean, on the regular. I consider myself a person who doesn't agree with what I view as racism, sexism, classism, general oppressions like that. Although nobody really, I think that a lot of people who do sort of oppress other people don't really think of themselves that way. They just feel that they have a distinct opinion. But I mean, even the distinct, so what I would consider my own distinct opinions about what would include something negative like racism or sexism, I try to understand the other person's point of view and challenge myself as to why I don't agree with it or why I would agree with something else, to try and make myself think and to reaffirm what I believe or to change it if it's necessary. I think everyone should try and definitely challenge what they think.